To the fifth lesson, looking at the Norman Conquest, Anglo-Saxon England and the Norman Conquest. This lesson looks at the Norman invasion in 1066, and we're going to look at three questions. What happened in the Battle of Hastings? What were the armies like that fought there? And why did William win? If you have access to the online textbook or a paper copy, this lesson looks at pages 32 to 37. So what happened at Hastings on the 14th of October 1066? You can see on the map that the first group of soldiers who attacked from the Norman side were the archers, and they're firing uphill towards where King Harold and the Saxon army are standing at the top. Harold's shield wall holds firm. The next attack that happens is the foot soldiers, the infantry attack up the hill. But again, you can see the soldiers have to turn back because they can't get through the shield wall. The third thing that happens is that the cavalry, the Norman knights, begin to attack. However, we know that they also retreated. They were unable to break through Harold's shield wall. And you can see that on the diagram at point number 4. The English shield wall breaks then. The men who have been standing during the day, throughout the day, repelling these attacks, begin to break, and they chase the cavalry and the Normans as they retreat down the hill. This means that the shield wall is broken, and the Normans then attack again up the hill. Because the shield wall is now broken, they can get through, and Harold is killed and the battle ends. You'll remember that one of the parts of this story is that when they retreated, William lifts up his helmet and says that he is still alive. And this was one of the ways that the Normans gave the Normans courage to attack again. But you can see that through this battle, it's not looking like William is going to win. It's looking like Harold's army are going to hold firm. The battle lasted for 8 hours, which is a really long time for a medieval battle, and that suggests that the armies were quite evenly matched. It was going to be difficult to know who would win this battle. Okay, pause the video and write down as much as you can remember about the events of the battle. Either draw pictures for each stage, or draw your own version of the map, or write down some of those key points to help you remember what happened on the 14th of October 1066. There's a link in the video notes to another video, a documentary about the Battle of Hastings that you may want to watch. Let's look now at the composition of the armies in the Battle of Hastings. And we'll look first of all at the elite troops. So you can see on the left hand side we've got a man on horseback. He's a knight and he is Norman. On the right hand side we've got some Anglo-Saxon soldiers, and the first thing that you'll notice is that they are not riding horses, and you might be able to see some of their weapons in that image. So let's have a look. The Normans then were highly trained. Both the knights and the horses had trained together for years, ready to fight. They had strong heavy armour, and you can see that armour chainmail in the picture. They had swords, and in this picture you can see a lance or a javelin. That's the very long pole with a very sharp pointed end used in the battle. That's a lance or a javelin that's being held here. Riding on horseback meant that the Normans had a height advantage when they came to fight an English soldier, and you can see that in the other picture. You can see that the knight would be higher up. You can see the horse's head there. The only downside, the only problem with these elite troops on the Norman side is it was difficult for them to be fast going uphill, so it was difficult to attack on horseback uphill. What about the Normans then? Well, the Normans had housecarls and thanes who were well trained. They also had strong heavy armour, very similar to the Normans. You can see the helmets, for example, are very similar, a cone shape with a piece of metal or leather over their nose to protect their face. Their weapons, you can see the heavy axes, the two-handed axes that could chop off a horse's head. And they also have got different shaped shields, more rounded shields, and these they used as part of a shield wall that we were talking about in the last slide, to defend against attacks. The main problem or the main disadvantage with these troops is that if that shield wall was broken, the advantage was lost. We're going to have a little bit more information about the armies, and then you're going to correct some statements. So again, just listen to the explanation on this one and then you can move on to the next slide. So overall then, the Norman army had about 800 knights. William had about 4,000 to 6,000 soldiers on foot. Some of them were Normans and some were from other countries who William had paid. They're known as mercenaries. Some of these men were archers and had crossbows, which was quite a new invention at that time, and some had swords and javelins, those long spears. The Saxon army, we don't know how many housecarls Harold had. It's not recorded in the sources, but he would have had some. And then 6,000 to 7,000 soldiers on foot, and these are the men from the Fyrd. The Thanes who were fighting with Harold would have had good weapons, but the general Fyrd would probably only have had their farm tools. And we know also that Harold did not have many archers. So the Bear Tapestry, which is where these pictures are taken from, doesn't show many arrows coming from the Saxon side. Okay. Each of these 8 statements has a mistake in it. So pause the video, see if you can spot the mistake in each line and make a correction. Once you've had a go, have a look at the next slide, which shows you what the mistakes are, but doesn't tell you what the right answers are. So here are the mistakes. Make sure you can find the corrections. Okay, let's try an exam style question. Describe 2 features of Harold's troops at the Battle of Hastings. This is worth 4 marks. Remember, it's the first question on the exam paper. Here's an example of a beginning of that answer. One feature was that Harold had thanes and housecarls. These soldiers were well trained and had weapons such as Danish axes as well as round shields. That would get you 2 marks. You've named a feature and you've added a description. So use that example structure to write about a second feature. Remember to add the second sentence with the detail. Challenge, if you've done that, do the same. Can you do the same for William's troops? So describe 2 features of William's troops at the Battle of Hastings. Lastly then, why did William win? Here are 2 boxes explaining why. Read the boxes carefully and then answer the questions on the next slide. So answer these questions using the boxes on the previous slide. We'll need to play the video forward and backwards to look at those boxes. So what 3 reasons does the yellow box give? Why was Harold not so well prepared? You need to use your knowledge from last lesson. What 3 reasons does the green box give? What events from the battle are mentioned? What's the main difference between the 2 explanations? And then a longer answer question, question 6. The Normans won because William was a better leader than Harold. Write 5 facts that support this statement from the lesson. And as a challenge, can you write a paragraph disagreeing with that statement? And you could use luck and events before the battle as examples to help you do that. Well done for completing the lesson.